drafts that I normally share with you guys. And so once I get that done, I will just mail it to the committee, and then we can view it the next committee meeting. But we did finish our fiscal year, so I'll be doing the full-blown water audit now over these next 2 months, and we'll have the report due to the state by September 1st.
Okay. The asset management and work order system.
So Ashley and I have been working with NMED, and we put together a rough draft of the plan that compiled what we have currently, and that was being submitted with the CDBG grant application. So we do have a working draft now. We're still waiting to finalize the contract. NMED is trying to get the contract done with the Southwest Finance Environmental Group. They're just having substantial issues with their contracting portion of that bureau. And I think a lot of it's just tied to most of them are still working from home. So we're still awaiting that contract, and then that group will help us do finalize the asset inventory, and then they're going to help us set up the data into the geodatabase that Ashley's helped set up the foundation for, and then they'll be working on the criticality and finance component of the analysis. So we're still just kind of on standby until that. And then for the work order system, I think everyone's relatively embraced the CityWorks. Ashley just did a follow-up training with the street department, and so hopefully they're catching on to it. Ashley, do you have any comments? It seems like people are starting to get used to it.
Yeah, everybody seems, for the most part, that they understand this work order system, and like Eric said, they are really embracing this work order system, and the data, the dashboards we set up for them. It's kind of really interesting to see, as people are putting in inspections and work orders, how these dashboards are getting updated, and where are most of their work orders falling into, like what categories are falling into. I think most people are doing a really good job, though, on this new work order system.
And we were doing weekly Q&A sessions, but people stopped coming to them, so Ashley's reduced it to a once per month. And then if any departments need some type of special training or anything, we'll look at doing it or working with them one-on-one. But I think we won't need that anymore.
Okay. Are you doing the Alto Reservoir improvements?
Yeah. So Tim signed the task order with Moles and Corbin to do this preliminary technical memo, so that we know what work we are working or are going to plan for the Alto Reservoir. Randy Kane and I and Jan Boone did a kickoff meeting with them, so that we're all on the same page. Our first step is we're going to be doing the pressure test for the old water line crossing the highway. So staying on the north side of Ski Run Road, it cuts up and follows the highway, cuts across, and then there's a utility easement through Alto that goes down to the reservoir. We're going to do a pressure test there to see if that line is still in good shape, and if that's the case, we'll look at designing a project to connect that to the Alto pump house to run water to the snow play area and the Eagle Creek Sports Complex for irrigation and snowmaking. So I checked my email today, and there is a draft protocol for that, and we'll look at getting a contractor to do that pressure testing. Randy, did that cover about everything?
Yeah, you did. That sounds pretty good, Eric.
So that'd make it easier for Tom to get water at the snowplay.
Yeah, so what we're hoping to do is to utilize the buffer that Alto Reservoir provides us so that his snowmaking doesn't really affect our water production capabilities. Because we do have the water to provide there, it's just that at the time when he needs to draw it, it affects our treatment plant operations. So this should be, we did design a new line and pump station from Alto Reservoir, and the engineer's estimate was right at about $1 million. And so we're desperately trying to see if we can find a cost-saving mechanism. And one of the major expenditures for that project was the utility crossing at the highway. And when the highway was being expanded, they put in a brand new ductile iron crossing over the highway. And that was in 2003, I believe. So it should still be in really good shape and should be a good spot for us to utilize it. The section that concerns me the most is the stretch through Alto, because that is the oldest section from the 1960s.
Okay. Talk about your underground storage and recovery.
So we've got the task order in place on this next workshop meeting to work with John Schumacher and Associates with the pre-application permitting and pilot project. And so this is a complicated permitting process, and we have to do a study that's designed in conjunction with both the Office of the State Engineer and NMED, where we'll drill some monitoring wells and develop a pilot project to see that we can, in fact, inject and store water in this formation that we feel will be a suitable location for it. And the reasoning for it is because there is a formation where there was a fault, and the formation shifted down, and the formation under it is not as permeable, so it kind of formed a container, an underground container that we initially estimated could hold up to 200 acre feet, and that's going to help us when we have ample spring runoff or monsoons from Eagle Creek. We'll be able to increase the production from Plant 3 and inject that water into the ground and store it for these periods where we don't have any surface flows.
That would be treated water from Plant 3?
Yes. So there'd probably be a process to dechlorinate it, but the water would likely have to go through some type of treatment process regardless, even if it was just raw water. And so we're looking at opportunities to just not repurpose, but use our water distribution lines so we don't have to install a dedicated transmission line down Gavilan Canyon from Treatment Plant 3, which would be a very expensive project.
And where's this going to be located?
So there's two spots where the formation is prevalent. One is right around Warrior Drive, right around the high school. And then the other area is in upper Gavilan Canyon, so kind of around where the middle Gavilan well is by the Gates of Gavilan subdivision in Fawn Ridge, and then up towards the Jehovah's Witness Hall. So there is a good formation there for injection.
And this would be kind of direct transfer. We'd put in water and then hope to get that much out.
There would probably be some type of loss, but we would only look to pursue actually building the capital or spending the capital to build the project if it was a sustainable operation. So it might be, maybe we get 10 or 15% losses that aren't recoverable, but a lot of other municipalities, they have, long-term storage operations. So, like Tucson in Arizona has approximately 2 years of their per annum water needs injected and banked into the ground, and they have a really good storage system. Ours is substantially smaller, and we only at the best could store about 10% of our annual needs. But this will help us develop our conjunctive use strategies, where when we have substantial surface water, we can use it, and then we'll pump it out of the ground when we don't have it. So ours will be more of an active system versus storing it for later, like multiple years later.
Yeah. All right. Town and Country rehab. Samantha just walked out, but does anybody know do you know, Ron?
So the grant application is due on the 17th of July, and Samantha's tomorrow at the council meeting, the special council meeting, will be presenting a resolution for adoption by the council. And Samantha will be ready to I believe she's going to take the grant application to Santa Fe and hand deliver it. It's going to be on flash drives and be able to get that in by the 17th. So
No, she'll actually drive it up there on Thursday.
is that when she's going up this
Yeah.
Thursday? Okay.
This Thursday, and the plans are 95% complete. So
Actually, did we submit the asset management plan to her? There was the two things that the application needed, was that draft asset management, and then it needed that resolution that's coming this Tuesday.
The asset management plan that we worked on and with Karen, I put it on the drive and
yeah.
told,
Yep.
Samantha where it was.
I'll check with Samantha on that. I'm sure she has it, and we're excited. And once we submit the application, we'll be waiting for the hearings on the project, and then we move forward with that. So
Good. Hopefully it gets approved. Okay, stormwater management at Horton.
Great. So we finished the survey. So the surveyor out and did the topo of the area, and then there was also the geo tech test out there, and I think they did 4 soil corings. I think it was 4, but so Chris should have everything that he needs in hand to start the design, and we should hopefully have something here in our hands to comment on and work on in the next month or so.
And the RJU shop building, I guess Adam's not here. Do you have anything on it, Tim or Ron?
So as we discussed during our project update on Thursday, we're going to be moving forward. We're going to move forward with the Wilson and Company and proceed with the original plan. Is what we'll be doing. So.
Okay. All right, Grindstone Dam projects.
Okay, task order number 2, that's for the dam monitoring. Sauter Miller started last Thursday, which was the 2nd. And task order 3 is for the dam drain cleaning project, which will be on the workshop tomorrow morning.
Okay,
So Randy, I actually visited with the surveyor there he was on there on Friday. So Friday morning, he was there for most of the day over at Grindstone. So.
Yeah, I said Thursday. I'm sorry, Ron. You're right. It's Friday.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was going to be out there all day, and then I actually coordinated it with Tom over here. If I gave him the phone number just in case if he had any issues or anything. Then I gave him the gate combos. So.
okay, the Eagle Creek and Gavilan Canyon well field design. I guess that's you, Eric.
Yeah, so that's the Brown and Fault well. Tim signed a small task order with John Shoemaker and Associates. They're going to be subcontracting with HGS out of Albuquerque to install a temporary pump in Brownwell and do a pumping test. And the reason for us doing that is since Brownwell has been out of service for so long, we don't have good records of exactly what the well produces in its current state. We do have records from it from 15 plus years ago, but we don't know how the formation has changed since then. So we're going to do that test, and then that's going to be put into the design work that Moles and Corbin is doing. We did the kickoff meeting with Moles and Corbin and set out the preliminary site layouts for the two wells, and then Micah, who is our engineer of record for the projects, me and him visited the sites and walked through them. And so I think we have a pretty good design layout for those two well locations.
Okay.
And we're looking at having everything done, ready for bidding in December was the target date.
All right, hazard mitigation and stabilization for the sewer line.
Okay, well, waiting final design, 100% final design, which is due to be turned in on the 14th of July. That design will go on to our permitting agencies and to FEMA EHP to be reviewed, and hopefully they can get everything they need to SHPO and move forward with our permitting and EA approval.
Okay, how are the easements coming on all that?
As far as hazard mitigation, we don't have any of those easement letters prepared yet, as we were waiting for the final boundary surveys to be completed. But as far as when it comes to restoration and the lift stations, we've received 7 responses from the 10 property owners that we're waiting to get.
Karen,
Yes.
I think we're gonna give a full update on that in the council meeting,
Okay.
in the executive session, so,
Okay.
yeah. I just don't want you to go too much into detail on that right now, so we'll cover that in
Okay.
the executive session, Counselor.
Okay, you got out of that. How about lift stations and force mains?
That's ready for procurement as soon as we get moving along and getting all of our permits. That'll also be included in our updates for tomorrow as far as easements and stuff.
All right. Okay, Eric, the Greenwell.
So we've got this advertised right now, and we had the pre-bid meeting, and we had 2 contractors show up. Both expressed how much the market is kind of drying up for them, and so both were really excited about the opportunity to bid this project. So I think we'll have a good turnout, and hopefully we'll have some good competitive bids. We should have bids due, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the end of next week.
Yeah, the bids are due on the 17th at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, the Mockingbird sewer line extension.
That project's all the way done. MP Chavez finished that. And Ashley, do you know how many connections there were in that?
No, but all the Mockingbird, hold on, I can, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 letters were sent out to Mockingbird addresses. So they're in the first phase of the ordinance of pulling the application right now.
Good. The Alto Crest treatment
Okay.
improvements.
The NTP was officially,
Hey, Randy, you muted yourself.
sorry, I don't know how that happened, but sorry. But Smithco came out, they did some preliminary measurements and looked at some of the stuff on the filters. They brought a backhoe out and nobody's been out there since. So I checked with Terry today and they haven't shown up today. So if not, I'll give them a call tomorrow. See when they're gonna, but basically they're gonna start outside, do all the dirt work and everything on the outside.
Okay, the main road additional work.
So we reviewed the two submittals from Roper Construction, one for the facade and the other was for the geotextile grid that will be put down on the ground to stop erosion. We approved both of those. The other thing is we're issued a field notice to Ryan Roper Construction to change the scope of work. One being we eliminated the riprap rundowns on the northwest corner of the bridge and exchanged just for filling it in, re-leveling the surface with new topsoil, and that's something that Ryan Roper and Ron, I think you were part of the email chains, and the property owner resolved. The other thing is they're not going to have a culvert in that person's driveway. There's just going to be a reinforced crossing there, so the water's just going to flow over the driveway when there's higher flows. And then we went and visited the staged rock pile, and there wasn't going to be adequately sized rocks based on the bid specification in our staged rock area. So we are purchasing new rocks from Ryan Roper for the fish habitat, and he agreed to waive any of the delivery fees for it. So we're just paying the per ton rate, and we've set up that PO already. The construction was supposed to start today, but there's some issues with getting the bonding in, and so as long as we get all the appropriate bonding in, we should look at starting on the 13th, I believe.
That is correct.
So going back to the field change order, that'll decrease the cost of removing the culvert. We won't be placing the culvert, so it's going to decrease the cost, and then we'll do at the end of the project a change order to show the decrease in the cost. So.
Okay. Okay, Eric, all those next well improvements.
Okay. Apple Orchard and Middle Gavilan, they're just right now they're trying to find and locate the exact line in which the Middle Gavilan will tap into the Hull and Gavilan water tank, and so we're getting close to finding that, and they're finishing the process piping in the yard there, and they should be starting work, if they haven't already, on putting in the new line from Gavilan Canyon to the well house. They've also started working on all the electrical repairs. I've been working with the contractor and the electric companies to get all those appropriately permitted. We've been having a hard time because everyone relies on Google to navigate, and the address there doesn't show up well on Google, so they try to drive around to some random places and they can't find it. So that's been our big complication. P&M has had a hard time. So I tried to explain it thoroughly to their engineer, and I think he'll be there. I think he did find it finally.
Okay, the Country Club tank, Randy?
Okay, the project is roughly 80% complete. They've got the tank, everything's built. They're working on putting in the overflow pond, and they're working on finishing up the piping to the outlet, and all the manholes and vaults are installed. And they're going to try to start filling sometime by the end of the week, and then running the back tees. But we took a back tee today and took it to the lab, and they should have an answer on that 24 hours later, which puts it about tomorrow afternoon. And then they should be good on that line.
Good. Okay, the restoration of existing sewer lines and manholes.
That, this phase of, the project is still on, suspended.
Okay.
SAK's contract still suspended, so we're awaiting, all the approvals once we get the design submitted. So we'll be moving forward on that. Hopefully, like I said, the design is due on the 14th, so hopefully we'll start seeing some movement there.
Okay, well, the Alto 2 improvements.
So for Alto 2, we're bringing a small change order to the governing body tomorrow, just for some minor changes. We tried to reutilize the existing PVC transmission line that was coming from the well, and it wasn't quite buried as far as it should have been by the Eagle Creek crossing. So they're going to replace a 20-foot section of it to get it to that 3 feet deep. And then that's going to help, or 4 feet deep, I'm sorry. And then that's going to help us transition into the crossing in Eagle Creek. During the dig across Eagle Creek, they found it's called a fault formation. And basically what happened is there's a crack that occurred in the underlying volcanics, and lava flowed up it and made this little dike wall, and those are significantly harder than the surrounding rock. And so rather than chipping all that away for the concrete encasement for the crossing, they just chipped away enough of it, and that dike formation is going to be built into the concrete, and that should be fine for the integrity. But they've got that area trenched, and they've installed the pipe. Now they're just getting ready to pour the concrete encasement, and then they should be done with the crossing. We also had the extension that's in this change order because of material delays, and one of the delays we're still waiting on is the vaults, and Dean is still a little bit concerned about their delivery date. They're supposed to be delivered here in 2 weeks. That's the intended delivery date, but we'll see if they come. I think that's everything for that project so far.
Okay, well, the next one's yours too, I think. Fulton Bradwell.
That's one to scratch. That's in the engineering under the design and planning.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And Hemlock Circle, phase 2. Is that done?
Hemlock Circle is, we're still awaiting closeout docs from the contractor.
Okay. Okay, then the closeout on those 3 projects.
So, Counselor, I didn't know, I thought for these, if we could just go through the lessons learned with you guys.
Yeah.
So for the Grindstone Canyon wetlands, we attached the report for you guys to review. But some of the lessons that we learned was just for these type of watershed kind of soft engineering projects, it was really valuable to have the engineer on site during their construction, because the engineer made quite a bit of tweaks and fine-tuned it to fit the landscape. And so it'd be hard to permit, but in the future we might see about kind of doing some softer designs that are not all the way finalized and just have the extra money for the engineer to be on site and make those fine-tuned changes out in the field. The spec seed rates, it was from hand spreading, and so we had to buy some additional seeds because of the way that we spec'd it was we dictated a certain pounds, but because it was done by hand, it was not done to the required amount. And so if we have hand spreading seed applications, we should just spec a little buffer in there because we naturally spread more by hand. We use the AIA format for this, and we realized that in the contracts, there's only a substantial completion date. There's not actually a contract closeout date. And so when we use these contract forms, we need to make sure that there's actually both substantial completion and closeout in them. For the mulch material that we had for the wetlands that were mixed in, we did note that it was going to be very hard to write a specification, and we kind of didn't want this material to come from anywhere because we didn't want to bring in new invasive plants or other things. So for this project, we just bought it from Sierra Contracting and delivered it and allowed the contractor to use the piles that we purchased. And that was a really good method to make sure that we maintain that local product and then also didn't bring in foreign plant species. And then in the specification, we said that they could transplant willows in any different way. This contractor chose to dig up willows and transplant the root wads. But, you know, I think that some of the pole plantings that we did supplementally, where we just cut branches and stuck them in the soil, had just as good of success rate. And probably in the future, we should expect more plantings for pole plantings and just say do pole plantings so they don't have to bring in heavy equipment and have this destructive process of where they dig up willows. And then the last thing, and this was from the engineer, he said we need to keep in mind how existing wildlife will utilize work after construction and impacts from future wildlife. We anticipated elk impacting the area afterwards, but we didn't realize the amount of damage that the hoofs would cause to the berms. And so we've already gone out and done some work on these structures because of damage from elks. So it's just something for us to think about in the future. I think it would have been astronomically difficult to keep elk out of there. We would have probably doubled the cost of the project to put up a fence, but maybe we could have made the berms higher above grade or a little bit wider to handle some of that hoof action. And so that was all of our lessons learned. I didn't know if you guys had any questions about the project. I'm sure you're tired of me talking about it for the last year.
Okay, that you've got Malone and DePaulo too.
Oh, if Adam's not here, would you want to suspend those and put on the next utility
Yeah,
committee?
that'd be fine.
Okay.
Well, that looks like everything unless somebody has something else. Hey, Karen, it looks like, yeah, well, you've got it there. August 3rd will be our next meeting at 3 o'clock. And I guess we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.